be a slave to no one. If there's one thing that this game sort of tries to teach you, if it's trying to teach you anything at all, I don't think it really is, other than, hey, look, flashy, beat 'em up, spectacle fighter. Yes, don't be a slave. Go, go follow and uphold justice, I guess. Maybe that's what this game's teaching you. But if not, it's just a game. So, the story of this game, if you haven't played Slave Zero, and I don't think many people have, even though it's on Steam and I think came out a long time ago, if it's a game I'm thinking of, there's a sovereign Khan that rules the city, making life miserable for everyone else in the city, and these bot things sort of do the bidding of the sovereign, and they just live to serve. So that's, they rule the rest of this world. So these living slave machines, they're used by these guardians, which are to fight, like sort of the rebels, I guess, to fight back against these biomecha. And this humanoid character, Shu, chooses to rise up and use these living slave machines to fight against the oppressors. So that's like the first 5 minutes of the game. It's not really giving you any spoilers. So Slave Zero X, it really feels like a 2.5D Devil May Cry meets Streets of Rage hack and slash spectacle beat 'em up. Just the movements, the animations, a lot of the designs really remind me of Streets of Rage. It was the first thing I thought of, and someone's like, oh yeah, it's like Devil May Cry. I'm like, yeah, it is, but just the flow of the game really reminds me of Streets of Rage. So the game looks like an industrial world where, you know, natural beauty's being ravaged in favor of like a military existence. Animation and general flow, again, really reminds me of Streets of Rage 2 or The Punisher, like any classic like beat 'em up that had like a lot of animation and I would say like passion put into just designing the game. So Slave Zero X really just demands skill over button mashing, at least from my experience. I kept trying to get better ranking at the end of the level, but just like Devil May Cry, I'm really good at getting C's and D's rather than B's. So rare for me to get a B in these games. And it's really hard as heck, and it may be a huge challenge for the average Joe Schmo to enjoy. I enjoyed it, but apparently it gets even harder later, but that's for later to talk about. The game expects you to dodge with a very limited time frame and parry, otherwise you're going to be pummeled beyond measure. And that's one thing I really noticed. Like if I made a mistake or I didn't connect my weapon, my slave unit against beating up a character, they would just totally pummel me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there goes, you know, my health bar. The story's interesting. Just, it doesn't feel particularly special, but I mean, it's a beat 'em up, so really does it have to have like considerable depth when you're there to button mash or to parry or do spectacle maneuvers. The music's fantastic. Honestly, the graphics are pretty sweet. Sort of like pixel 2D pixel sprite things. And it's a major highlight, the music, to the overall experience. I just thought, hey, I gotta listen to this music outside the game once I'm finished playing this. And that's usually a sign, hey, the music's really good. So ultimately the game feels special and has so much potential, but still feels lacking, unfortunately. The fighting looks impressive, but it still needs work for it to feel like a fair fight. As I said before, alluded to before, bosses feel like they have an upper hand where the minions seem to be, you know, content to just observe you, pummel their buddies, or until their turn. However, there's times where the bosses are just brutal and they all combat you relentlessly, unfortunately. And there's just gross lack of defensive options in this game. And I thought it was in early access. It's really not, which is a shame. So I don't know if they can release a patch that balances the difficulty. That would really help for like someone that doesn't want to play like a Devil May Cry on super hard or whatever the mode is. So instead the game demands you to constantly juggle your enemies, or else you will die. And I wasn't always able to effectively do that. And I feel like if you're juggling, you're also not necessarily doing the coolest of rank maneuvers. to achieve at the end. So I also feel like the damage boxes need improving. Like sometimes the slash would be very wide and still didn't hit anyone. So yeah. So anyways, ultimately the difficulty is very high. It gets even harder apparently near the end of the game. There's only like 6 levels, and I got to like the third or fourth level, and it was hard, but not super hard. So I really feel like an adjustable difficulty, that would be the way to go with a patch or something. The game goes for $32.50 full price. It's kind of expensive for a beat 'em up. I guess it's like in the same ranking as Streets of Rage 4, the premium beat 'em up, but that still seems kind of high to me. I feel like it's a solid $10 to $15 game, but like the high difficulty is going to turn off a lot of gamers. People that just see this and it's like cool, awesome, new beat 'em up, does something different, great music, and then they start playing and it's like, oh my gosh, this is brutally hard. Get good or I get playing something else. So, but the game is so challenging, even though there's only 6 levels, unfortunately. Sadly, I'd have to give this a 6 or 7 out of 10, just because it has so much potential and it's really cool. The music's really cool, really good. I mean, and just everything seems like it's got everything going for it, but the difficulty just is too punishing. And if that could be balanced, like this would get probably a much better score for most people. Just enemies can really juggle you, and there's cheap hits. Unfortunately, with some patches, this could be a borderline classic, and it's a shame. It's got those things holding it back. So keep on fighting, keep on gaming. Ciao.